As a producer, how is it working with other producers, such as when you did Touch the Sky for Kanye?
Touch the Sky was an easy production process. I mean, I um I probably came up with the track about 30 minutes before he got to the studio. He called me and was like, like maybe like a week later, and was like, "Yo, the record's done. Let's mix it. I want this to be, one of the singles." And the funny thing is that we mixed it, and we actually all liked the rough mix better. So what you hear on that record is actually the rough version of the record. We mixed his vocals, but the beat that you hear is straight out of the drum machine. It just felt better. Sometimes when you're mixing a record and you take it apart and try to put it back together, it doesn't always work out. So we rocked with the rough mix. The process was real simple. He knew what he wanted to do. The track really didn't need to be rearranged or anything like that. It's not a big story behind that record. It was really simple. And I guess when you're dealing with an artist who's also a producer and knows what he wants, it just makes the process that much easier. At the end of the day, you come to a producer to produce your record, whether you're an artist yourself or producer yourself or not. If you're going to somebody else, it's because you want what they do. Right. So, but it's not like I don't say that to say that he didn't have any input, but I guess track-wise, he kind of didn't. He heard what he liked and he knew what he wanted to do with it. Like I said, it's that much more simple. And as a producer myself, when you're dealing with another artist who knows how to produce or is a producer, it actually also makes it simpler because this isn't always the case, but the majority of the time, producers who are artists themselves usually tend to make better songs. So you don't have to coach them as much. You know what I mean? If you look at a lot of the greatest producers that were also rappers, they weren't the best rappers, but they made the best songs. So it was an easy process.
You also worked with Wayne. How is the process of working with Wayne different than working with other artists?
I wouldn't say there was anything particularly different in working with Wayne that stood out. Really, he does work very fast. And he tends to just kind of do like Jay does, where he just kind of listens to the song and comes up with it on the spot. It's a pretty simple process. I worked with him with Jamie Foxx on this record called Number One. He came in and knocked that out. When I flew down to Miami to get his verse for No Love for M, knocked it out, in one night. He kind of just paced back and forth in the room, had a couple of his homies in there with him, and, he would just bounce ideas off of them. And, like any artist does, you have your people around you, you get their opinion, maybe they weren't writing for him or anything like that, but, just you got your team around you. So he would just bounce ideas back and forth with his team. I didn't even really have to do anything. I left the room and went to sleep, woke up and it was done and he spit it and it was perfect. He's a lot of times the greatest artists are also the easiest to work with, it's the ones who aren't as talented as they think they are, who are the ones that tend to be more difficult.
So are you saying Wayne is one of the greatest?
Well, you can't deny that Wayne's one of the greats. You know what I mean? Like there's anybody who tried to tell you differently, but they would just be lying to themselves. He's definitely one of the greats. He had an incredible run. When you never really checked for him in terms of your top MCs when he was younger. Then all of a sudden it was like a light switch just went off, and all of a sudden he was just rapping. You know what I mean? So I would definitely consider him one of the greats. What he's done in music in general is kind of legendary.
Who is the most difficult artist you ever worked with?
I've never really had difficulty working with artists in the studio. Like I said earlier, a lot of the most successful artists, a lot of the greatest artists are the easiest ones to work with, and I've been blessed and fortunate enough to work with the likes of Jay, or M, and and Drake and Wayne, and I mean the list goes on. I've worked with some really great artists. Like I said, not everybody's as talented as the other, but they're all great in their own ways. And I don't really have anything bad to say about anybody.
Do you have a favorite artist you like working with?
I mean, working with Jay is always easy because it's not really like work. I'm just doing what I love. He's doing what he loves. And, there's a good chemistry there. So that's always easy. And the end result 9 times out of 10 it's going to be something crazy. So that would probably be top of my list, probably.
During the Roc-A-Fella days, would you say there was a friendly competition between you and Kanye?
I wouldn't say there was producer competition. I mean, there was definitely. Well, put it this way. I wasn't competing with anybody. You know what I mean? I had the most records out of that whole Roc-A-Fella run. So who was I going to compete with aside from myself? That being said, sometimes I know for a fact that we would mutually motivate each other. Like he'd walk in the room, I'd be making something, and he'd be like, wow, but it was never like, oh, I need to beat that. It would just be like, yo, he would just be like he'd ask me, like, how do you make those kind of beats? Like, how do you get your horns to do this? How do you get your drums to do this? And that's pretty much, or sometimes I would have a sample chopped up on the drum pads, and he would walk in and be like, yo, it would be crazy if you did it like this, and he would do a new pattern on the drum machine, on the drum pads, and I'd be like, yo, I never even thought about it like that. So that's kind of more so what the relationship was like. You know what I mean? It was never like, oh, I got to do better than him, because at that time I kind of already was. From a producer standpoint, you also got to remember he was focused on being an artist. So part of the reason why I had the majority of the records out of that whole Roc-A-Fella run was because I was there every day with Jay and them, and Beans and Bleak and Freed and everybody else. Like, I was there 24/7. Ye wasn't. Ye lived in Chicago, and he would just send stuff. Then he eventually moved to Jersey, but he never worked that bass line. He would just come and bring beats by. So by default, I had more. Plus, like I said, he was focused on being an artist. So he was just using his beats as a way to get in, get into the system, so to speak. So like I said, I was never really, worried about competing with anybody. I had no competition over there.